Welcome back to the TOWKA Talks podcast. Today I am joined by Nathan Gonzalez. He is a firefighter, paramedic, father, husband, and a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu Blue Belt. Nathan, thank you so much for joining me and welcome to the podcast.
Hey man, of course, thanks.
So, you and your wife welcomed a beautiful baby girl into this world earlier this year. So, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about how fatherhood has been for you so far?
Man, it's been great. It's a thing that I've always known I've wanted out of my life. Uh, I was raised by a single dad most of my life and never really knew my real mom. So it's always been a thing that was near and dear to me that I knew I wanted to be one day. I wanted to be a good dad. And to be honest, my wife wanted it before me, like most of them do. And my only regret is I wish I would have done it earlier because everything's true. All the cliche stuff is true to the bone of, your whole world changes, and that's the thing I'm most excited to do whenever I get home is just to see her. So it's been amazing. She's starting to kind of talk a little bit. She says "dada" and "mama" and all that stuff, and it's just a lot of fun watching her grow up, and her personality come out.
They also say that, like I think you just mentioned it, you become a lot more selfless, like because you're obviously a human being is depending on you for survival. So I feel like you especially are one of those dudes that's like so selfless because you put your life on the line being a firefighter, you put your body and your mind on the line with doing jujitsu and Muay Thai. Like I feel like you're just one of those dudes already that's super humble and super down to earth. Do you feel like you've grown even more as a more selfless and humble person since having a child?
Yeah, man, for sure. It's definitely helped me a lot. And one of the things that I talked to my wife a lot before we had our daughter, her name's Addison. Um, well, the reason I didn't want to have a baby so soon, because like I said, I always knew I wanted one day, but just didn't want it at the time. It's probably a couple year period where she's kind of pushing a little bit until I decided to finally sit down and do it. Is because, ironically, I'll be pretty candid about it. My basic excuse was I said I know I'm selfish with my time. I know who I am, and I know how I am, and I know who I want to be whenever I go to have a kid, and I want them to have all my time and me not be selfish about it, and me not that I'm never going to not be around for her, but I want to be able to give her the best that I could give and be the best version of myself. And just like everyone says about finances or whatever your worries are, if you're a middle aged or mid 20s guy and looking to have start a family, it's never the right time. You're never going to be the right person that you think you're going to be whenever it's time for it. Because truth be told, whenever we even had her, I was still very selfish with my time, and I still can be because I know it's a thing that's one of my weaknesses, and it's a thing that I have learned to work on. And for sure, having her has helped me kind of be more cognizant of that and catch myself whenever I'm wanting to go do things. Because, like you said, I'm always running, and then I always like to have time for myself, and I like to go train Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu and hunt and do all this other stuff. And so, my time is always a big thing that she's helped me kind of mitigate.
Is balancing family and career, and then obviously things that you like to do for yourself, difficult for you at times? Because obviously, they all take a lot out of you, and then you have to, focus on each and every one of them like 150, 200%. Do you feel like balancing, especially being a firefighter, has that been a little bit of an adjustment for you since having your daughter?
It for sure has learning to balance it all and just kind of learning how she's going to fit into our lifestyle. Um, just because, I mean, like you said, I'm the kind of person that if I'm going to do anything, I'm going to do it 110%. I'm not going to half-ass something, excuse language, but I'm not going to do something and just kind of lousily do it. I'm going to go all in on it. And that's how I wanted to be for fatherhood as well. And that's one of my problems, almost to a fault, also, is that I like to do everything 100%. And it's just been a different way of doing life. It's not bad. It's not, obviously, it's good, but it's not bad or anything. It's just been an adjustment for sure.
And what made you want to become a firefighter? Because I feel like every firefighter I've talked to loves the job, stays in it, so they pretty much are told they can't come back. I feel like there's always like a reason and a calling to do something like that. What was yours?
Uh, my kind of background story is a little different, and you say you have a few friends that are firemen as well. I mean, I'm sure you got a handful of different answers. There's the very few far between that they grew up. Their dad was a fireman. Their dad's dad's a fireman. There's dad's 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 dad was a fireman. There's very few that grew up saying, I want to be a fireman, and by God, that's what I'm going to do. And they come out of high school and they go straight to it. Very few far between from my experience, but for me, it's actually pretty funny. Uh, so when I was in high school, going into my senior year, I was gonna have a really kickback senior year. Gonna get out like noon or something like that. You know, go to football, have it be a day. One of my buddies actually convinced me into taking EMT in high school, and I was so ignorant to it that I was like, "What's an EMT? I don't even know what that is." And so I ended up taking it. Then I found out I had to pay for it because it's a college class. Like, this is bullcrap, man. Like, whatever, I'll still do it. And then I ended up passing. And shortly after high school, this is how little of a plan I had for after high school. Is I didn't take an SAT, nothing like that. Had no plan. Just went to work for my dad. My dad owns a fiber optic company. He has my whole life. I've always worked for him in the summers. About a few months into that first summer, I was like, man, this sucks. Like, what can I do with the CMT certification? And I'm gonna say, I'm sorry. What can I do with this EMT certification? So then I started looking around. Uh, I got a job at MedStar. I don't know if you're familiar with what MedStar is. They're the ambulance service for Fort Worth and the surrounding 14 cities. It's a 911 ambulance service. So here I am, 19-year-old kid working on ambulance 911 in Fort Worth. Big third party system is essentially what they call it. It's not municipal based like how where I work currently is. It's a third party ambulance service for the area. Saw a lot of crazy stuff. It's a high call volume system, and 19-year-old seeing all this crazy stuff. One of the things that worried me, because I remember after a really bad call, it was probably a few months after starting. I mean, we had like 6 or 7 fatalities on this call, on one single call, and they kind of have a system going to where they'll call you in there to the supervisor's office, ask you how you're doing, do you need anything, kind of follow up on you, just make sure your mental's okay. I told him, I was like, the only thing that really bothers me is that it doesn't bother me. I don't know if that's good or bad. And we just kind of laughed and all that and whatnot. Fast forward a little bit. I'm sitting there working there for about a year. I look around. I'm like, okay, I'm just the kind of guy that I'm like, what's the next step here? What is the next level up? I guess paramedic. So I'll go to paramedic school. So then I go to paramedic school, meet a couple really good friends that I still hang out with all the time. One of them was one of my groomsmen, actually. And they're the kind of guys where their dads were firemen and their dad's a fire chief and everything like that. And so I was like, once again, I found myself in paramedic school. Okay, what's the next level after this? They're like, well, if you want to make any money in this job, you're gonna have to go be firefighter and be a paramedic. I say, okay, well, that sounds nice. More money's good. So that kind of was my plan, but I couldn't really afford it at the time. Right after that, so I was planning on going and working somewhere else, out of state or something. Didn't have a bulletproof plan. And my buddy, who's one of my groomsmen, actually, his dad at the time was a fire chief for one of the mid-city departments, and he asked me, he was like, why aren't you gonna be a fireman? It's a big waste of time if you just don't do it right now. Like, why aren't you? Just give me one solid reason. I was like, I can't afford it. He goes, okay, well, what if I called my city or called one of my chiefs and I got you bunker gear, which is the protective gear that we wear, and you can wear that for fire academy with our city on it. I was like, well, I guess I wouldn't have an excuse. He's like, all right, show up Monday and go pick it up. And one thing led to another and kind of fell into this job, and I'm really glad I did.
Now the firefighter culture I've heard over the years with being in a environment like selling athletic shoes because a lot of you guys and girls are on your feet 24 hours a day, 48 hours, 24 to 48 hours. So you obviously need comfortable shoes for sure. Um, Kind of like the thing I've learned is that there's a brotherhood and a camaraderie within the department, like in the military. Do you guys feel like you definitely help each other through the good times and the bad times, not only in the firehouse, but also in personal lives? Is that how close you guys get?
Oh, for sure, man. I mean, you hit it on the head. I mean, inside and outside of the fire service, I mean, it's all there. And I'm sure just like military, I mean, a good crew can make you or break you. I mean, if you're on shift for 24, here in January, we're going to 48/96. So we'll work 2 days on, 4 days off. That's the new kind of fad schedule in the fire service now. And I'm glad we're getting that. If you're stuck in a station with a bunch of guys for 24, 48 hours that you just do not get along with, it makes it a long day and a long just career. I'm lucky to have a really good crew. Me and a guy on my crew, me and one of the guys on my crew, uh, we've been on the same crew for 7 years now, and he's one of my best friends. I mean, he was my best man at my wedding. Me and his wives are best friends. His kid is 4 months different age than my kid. I've been to more states with him than my wife, ironically. So that's pretty funny to say it like that. Been We went to Canada this year on a bear hunt. That was awesome. Been to Mexico with him. Been to all different kinds of states. I mean, that camaraderie and that just fellowship is definitely there, and it's felt at a core level for sure.
What advice would you give to somebody watching this? Maybe they have their EMT or paramedic certification already and desire to become someone like yourself, like a firefighter, to do something more. What advice would you give to somebody if they are kind of on the fence about it?
If you're on the fence about it and you've made it this far through paramedic school, because paramedic school is harder than fire academy, I'll say that. It's just a matter of being relatively physically fit to get through fire academy. But I would say if you're passionate about helping people and you want to find a career that isn't just a job, because I've said it a million times, I'll say it a million times again, it's not just a job for me. I mean, it's a way of life. It's a way of partly how I identify myself and how I carry myself. If you're on the fence about it, go do a write up somewhere. My department does it. Every department you find across the U.S. will allow people to do write outs for the most part. Some of them have different policies and whatnot, whatever. But as far as my department, you can call me, text me. You can give anyone that you know my number, and I'd be more than happy to fill out a form for them. They can come do a 24-hour write out, or I think they only do 12-hour write outs, 7A to 7P, and come see what it's like a day in the life of what we do. I mean, to be honest, it's not, especially where I work in Coppell, it's not all sexy like Chicago Fire and blah blah. We're not fighting 10 fires a shift. We're not fighting. Some years we don't fight 10 fires a year. I mean, it's a lot of medical calls. There's a lot of in between, and it's a lot more to the job than what you think. There's a lot of things to know. It's not just being a firefighter. There's public relations stuff. There's the fire. There's the EMS, which I consider myself very strong in EMS as well. Which EMS is emergency medical services. It's the paramedic side of the job, and and then at my station, we also have a heavy rescue, which I'm on uh, that and a federal rescue task force team called Texas Task Force 2 as a rescue specialist, and then I teach it as well at the college. So there's multiple levels to this job and different avenues. So if you were interested in the field of service and wanting to make things better than the way they were whenever you got there, this is the job. That's all you need to have. You don't need to have a passion for fire or EMS specifically. There's enough avenues in this job that you can find something that fits you for sure.
I do also want to add some things I've noticed about firefighters. One is they all have incredible, most of them have incredible mustaches. They get really hyped
Not this
up
guy.
when a fire is going down, and women absolutely love firefighters. Like, those are the three things, if I could take anything away from talking with them, that you guys, like, pretty much all have in common. And it's really cool. Like, I've noticed it from being in bigger cities to where, like, there's fire stations in the area, and they all have a really cool like mentality and want to help people, like what you just said about the EMS side of it, but also very very knowledgeable. You got to know what you're doing. Would you agree with all that?
Oh, 100%. You got to be knowledgeable, and um, you can study this stuff as much as you want. And I say this all the time too. But if you're not passionate about it, it'll go in one ear out the other. The biggest thing that separates professionals in this career path versus, not to say that there aren't people that aren't passionate about something like accounting or something. I'm not trying to bash accounting, but you get kind of the thing I'm talking about. There's lots of people that do these corporate jobs that just a degree they got in college because it was an easy degree, and now this is what they do, and they make a lot of money. But I can truly say that I'm truly passionate about every aspect of this job, and I'm not a smart guy. Like I said, I didn't take an SAT or SCT or whatever else there is. I don't even know what they are. But I'm not a smart guy when it comes to all that stuff. I was always a B, C, occasional A student. But I mean, I'm very passionate about this career path and everything that it entails. And because of that passion is what drives me to study this stuff and to really know my stuff. And I mean, for example, I just got my bachelor's degree this week. Actually, I got it the electronic one. It's in emergency health sciences, and I graduated with honors. Never in my life would I thought I could even get a bachelor's degree, let alone with honors. And so, yeah, to wrap it all up, kind of jabbering a little bit on it.
Was that really hard to do for you, graduating with honors, like balancing again family, work life, and then your personal life as well, like finishing school?
Uh, I wouldn't say it was hard. It's just everything else is just a shift in how we do things. I mean, it's gonna sound kind of cliche, but I mean, like just being the station life. I mean, one minute there's many times where we'll get a call and I'll forget I'm even at work. I mean, it's just changing pace of what we're doing. Oh, this is what we're doing. Okay, this is how we're gonna do it, and this is what we do. It's not a big thing. That's just kind of how I cater to my life, and it's just how I live. Everything is there's nothing that's really gonna throw me off track or make me worry about anything else. It's just okay. This is what we're doing now. And honestly, I'd say I didn't try very hard for it, but I mean, like I said, it just felt like I wasn't trying very hard for it because I was passionate about what I was learning, and it was easy to do because of that.
Speaking of being passionate and driven, what got you into trying Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? I'm just curious with your career so far, what made you get into it?
I've always wanted to try it. Um, I wrestled in high school. I was a wrestling captain of our team for a couple of years. Um, my senior year, I played. Of course, we live in Texas, right? I played football. No big surprise. Um, my senior year in football, like the first or second game, I tore my ACL. Still wrestled that year. Still was team captain. Still districts and all that jazz. But after that, just went off in my life and did everything I already talked about. And actually, one of my buddies that Juan knows because he trains at our gym as well, but he doesn't really train a whole lot anymore because of life or whatever. The reason is he did the classic blue belt and dip out of the gym move. But he's he was actually on my crew as well for a while over there in Coppell. But he's like, "Come on, man, you need to start trying jujitsu." I was like, "Yeah, I've always wanted to." Actually, always told myself in high school that I was going to go into MMA immediately after high school, but then I tore my ACL and I was always scared to. And then I finally got my ACL surgery 2018, 19 maybe. And after that, he was like, "Hey, what's your excuse now?" I was like, "Yeah, you're right. Okay, I'll start." And of course, the first gym I walk into is Peak Performance, and I'm glad it was Peak Performance because it's an amazing gym, amazing team, and great place to be. But yeah, I've always kind of been interested in it.
Have you had setbacks in your journey so far, like many of us go through, that you feel like you've learned a lot about yourself? Because it's a very humble sport. Obviously, we've been talking throughout this episode about selflessness, humility, passion, being driven. Do you feel like you've learned a lot about yourself so far, being in the sport and in a gym like Peak Performance?
For sure, for sure. At our gym, we do a lot of the competition rounds at the end of training days, and I think that helps a lot. Not put people in place, but let you know where you're at personally. And it's funny the same kind of mindset that I carry through other things of being able to look uh, introspectively. I think, I mean, you've probably seen a handful of these guys come and leave the gym, but they show up with a certain expectation of who they are and everything like that, and they can't handle being able to lose to a smaller guy. I mean, like, there's tons of guys that could walk in the gym and look at Tony, right, and then be like, "Oh yeah, I got this, whatever ball," and just get absolutely wrecked, like most of us would, like pretty much all of us would, and they just can't handle that. And I think that just because of everything else that I do, is really easy for me to accept that I'm going to suck this for a long time, and so peak performance has definitely helped with that. And the thing I found myself doing is I enjoy kind of helping other people naturally, and if I see new white belts, and I love seeing new white belts come in because I kind of give them little tidbits of what I can, of what I think I know, right? And so it's helped with that as well.
one of the things that I've learned personally with rolling with guys like you is that wrestlers are guys who have wrestling backgrounds, and judo and any other martial art that is in their background. I'm always very, very cautious because I don't come from a martial arts or a gritty background. You know, long distance running is tough at times, but it's not the same type of grit that you develop. There's just something about you guys that is just so like intimidating, but it's always like iron sharpens iron. That's the one thing you have to keep your head down and just continue to grind and just trust the process. That's at least what I've learned with rolling with you. I mean, we rolled a few times
Yeah, we haven't
when we
rolled a
both
whole
been at the
lot.
same time. But yeah, I mean, I just that's what I recall with rolling with you. It's always tough, and it's always going to be a really really like grueling match because you're just one of those guys that is so good. Obviously, you just said with your background in wrestling, it's really tough for somebody like me, but it always makes me better. And I'm one of those guys who likes to learn from other people, whether they're a white belt, blue belt, black
Oh,
belt. But yeah, would you agree with that? Does it help you with rolling with people of all levels and the like different backgrounds?
oh, for sure. Rolling with people with different backgrounds and different strengths and sizes. I mean, jujitsu isn't a size thing at all. Maybe in the white belt divisions it is, and with the absolutes and all that. But for sure, I mean, there's guys that you roll with, like you said, that are just more gritty is a really good way to put it, and they can just overpower you. They're more explosive. They have a collegiate athlete background or something like that. They're just really freakishly explosive. Like that, I can't remember that guy's name, but he's a white belt at the gym. I think he's an ex wrestler too, and that dude's just stupid strong.
Hmm.
And then he can have different problems than I can have with someone else. And so that's the thing I really enjoy about jujitsu is figuring out different things with different people, and it's just a big game of problem solving, which is everything about what I do with paramedicine and fire and technical rescue stuff. It's all problem solving and looking at things from a different angle and trying to figure out these different things. I mean, if you roll with a guy that's bigger than you or just purely better than you, the more experienced, you can work on your defense and certain things. You can just, I'm gonna play guard all day today. That's what I'm doing. Or if you're working with someone that uh, you're a lot better than or is pretty new. The thing I like about our gym too is it's not a super this douchey gym that's just gonna kick people or grind people out of the gym. I mean, I see a new guy come in or someone that's smaller than me, like significantly, then I'm working on my defense. I'm kind of working on more flow and things. I'm really not using any strength that I can. I'm not trying to be super explosive and just learning on different ways to work. So yeah, for sure that helps a lot.
How many competitions have you done in your career?
Man, like to, I would like to say I've done a lot more, but I haven't. I've only done one tournament. I got second in that tournament in gi and third in no gi. And in that championship match in the gi, I thought that this guy was going for a heel hook, and so I was like, okay, I'm good here because heel hooks are illegal in white belt, but he was going for a straight ankle lock, which I thought that's how ignorant I was to it. I thought all anything with the ankle was a heel hook, right? And so as soon as he grabbed it, I was like, okay, he's just holding on to it, and then he just starts cranking on it. I was like, oh crap, and I tapped on it, and it's like 5 seconds left. I'm up by like 8 points and got second, but I would like to compete a lot more, and I know that's who I am, and I like to test myself time and time again on everything I do. But I'm having to be a lot more cognizant and cautious about injuries, and I know competition's a big place to open up for injuries. And with my job, I mean, it's not worth it. Especially since I've had my kid now, and my wife doesn't work anymore, so I'm the only provider here. I work 2, 3 jobs. And so if I get injured, that's pretty detrimental, not just to me, but to other people in my family. And so I'm more cognizant of injuries now. That tournament was before baby time. And so now I'm a lot more cognizant of it. I was actually thinking about this last week or so about doing another competition, but then just the opening for injuries it's not worth it. For example, I mean, I broke my elbow, like a month ago now, hanging Christmas lights on Thanksgiving morning. Um, that's put me out of work for my part-time job, but luckily my department lets us do a light duty thing to where we don't have to use vacation time or sick time. So yeah, it's just not worth it as much for me anymore. I'll probably still do more, but just probably won't train at the same intensity.
And what got you into trying Muay Thai? Because that is a very intense, excuse me, an intense training sport, and obviously a competition sport as well. What got you into to doing that?
Uh, just like anything else, man. Just wanted to test myself, you know. Um, was doing jujitsu. I mean, I think I started them pretty simultaneously. Honestly, I started them both pretty much at the same time. Like I said, in high school, I was always wanted to try MMA and all this stuff. And whenever I started going to the gym, Victor wasn't in the UFC yet. He was about to be in the UFC though. I think he had one more fight, and then he went to Dana White's Contender Series, and then he got his contract. That's kind of the lineage of whenever I started to whenever he started getting into the UFC. And so the gym was very competition oriented at the time, and I was like, "This is awesome!" Okay, let's do Muay Thai too, and then let's start trying to do some MMA stuff and stuff like that. And so it's just always something that sparked my interest. I've never done striking. I've always even looked at striking and been like, "Man, I don't know how they do it." But I mean, it's just like jujitsu, you know. I mean, everyone's scared to start jujitsu because they're scared of getting heel hooked, or they're scared of the intensity because they're older or whatnot. You learn who to spar with and you can do what with, and who's going to pull back and who's not, and the kind of setting that they're going to do that in, and you know how to steer clear of those kind of people.
And what's one message, Nathan, that you could give to somebody if they're hesitant about trying jujitsu or Muay Thai?
They're hesitant about it. Um, like I said, I was hesitant too because I was scared of getting heel hooked, and my ACL wasn't there until I had surgery. Um, Go to a few different gyms. If you're in the Dallas Fort Worth area, go to Peak Performance with Taga, for sure. But go to a few different gyms, kind of catch the vibe in there. And it's kind of hard to say whenever you don't know what you're looking for because you don't know what you don't know. But if you get the bad vibes, follow that and leave that gym. But you will know who to roll with, or you will learn who to roll with and who you can and can't, and steer away from injuries. 'Cause I think that's the thing that keeps people from training the most. I mean, you see it. We have plenty of people that are older, even white belts that are older, like 50s, 50-year-old white belts. And it's truly a great workout, and it's a great way to get into martial arts. And just don't be scared to ask questions and look dumb. That's my biggest thing is I think I'm a glutton for punishment. I like to suck at things. And I enjoy learning new things and getting better and seeing the process and just leave your ego at the door.
Guys, if you enjoyed this episode with Nathan, please give it a huge thumbs up. If you have not subscribed to the channel yet, please consider subscribing and joining the TOWKA tribe. I want to thank Nathan for joining me again. It's been an honor and a privilege, brother. If you guys didn't check out the last podcast episode or the last YouTube video, please go check those out. The links will be in the description below. And until next time, I'll see you guys on the other side.
Later, man.